Hi everyone, it's been a long time, but hey, we got an interesting guest tonight. It's Michael Hague from UX TV. Mike, I'm so glad you could join us. Tell us about what you do and what kind of projects you're working on at the moment.
Thank you very much for having me, Andre. I'd like to say I'm a big fan of your work.
Thank you.
Particularly the animation stuff really brings the podcast to life in a different dimension. And I think, although I don't necessarily agree or understand some of the things that you've been talking about, I think that's great. You know, that you're interested in exploring different themes. I'll talk about UX TV because that's where we're going to be focusing our energy. I'm going to be focusing most of my energy in the coming days and weeks at the very least. I'll tell you how that's evolved. I'll tell you where we are now. I'll tell you where we want to go with it next.
Okay.
But what I'll explain is, yes, I'm involved in other activities. Call them what you will. I certainly, and part of the reason why I came to live here in Edinburgh was that I realised that it was a good size community in terms of professional groups like Agile, Lean, UX, entrepreneurs, startups, WeWork, the code base and all that. So I realised there was a really good ecosystem here in Edinburgh, and coupled with a good brotherhood, if you like, with
Okay.
Scotland,
Right.
good education system here, and a long history of innovation and invention that
Right.
comes from Scotland. So I thought this is a really good place for me to base myself, working towards aspirations that I've never even thought of yet, but certainly working on things that I enjoy doing.
So tell me, how long have you been here in Scotland?
I arrived in Scotland this time, I think it was June 2017.
Okay.
And yeah, I've been here. I've been, working, yes, on different projects, different companies. Really interesting work, very much in the agile space, Scrum, Agile, Kanban, Lean methodologies,
Right.
and a lot of user experience stuff and a lot of design thinking. So a lot of what I do, one of the things I really love is the particularly emphasising design thinking. Although it's really part of agile and UX, and these things all really very much relate to each other.
Right.
And are there are a lot of parallels you can draw between certain techniques and say UX, and the same techniques exist in design thinking. But one of the things that design thinking specifically makes a big point of is the experimentation phase.
Yeah.
And I think that for me is really a big part of how UX TV was born through previous experiments that I've been doing.
Okay.
And UX TV starts out as an experiment, like any of the projects that I work on,
Right.
and it's evolving at an amazing rate. And I feel that when I finally came up with that concept,
Yes.
I really thought this is the idea I've been looking to get behind for
Right.
quite a number of years.
What drove you to come up with that idea for UX TV? What inspired you?
A lot of things. I think at the end of the day, the only difference that you can make in a product, even how you are yourself, is in the experience that you provide. So if you're a car manufacturer, or you're a musician, or you're making a product that people buy in the supermarket, you really need to think about what is the experience of that product. How, from the minute people discover it,
Right.
to the time when they purchase it, to well after that, to
Exactly.
the aftertaste, if you like.
How it-
It's never going to be long in the conversation where we're not bringing up Apple and what they did and what Steve Jobs did. I mean, he realized that when the high street was in decline and people were pulling out of the high street
Yeah.
and bricks and mortar, he created a completely new way of doing that. And still to this day, I mean, they've been around for a long time and other companies have tried to copy them, but the bureaucracy in a lot of these companies has meant that they haven't been able to do that to the same degree that these Apple stores, I was there today with my girlfriend's laptop, and the support she's been getting from Apple has been phenomenal. You know, she's able to go in there. So it's not about reducing the number of people in stores. They've actually got more and more people. It's one of the biggest stores in Edinburgh, in fact. So they don't have a problem hiring and paying a reasonable wage, as far as I know.
Okay.
I don't know the facts on that, but I don't know what people get paid in there, but they certainly seem happy. It's definitely a very stress-free place going to an Apple store. I don't have Apple products myself because I always feel I can get a slightly better spec product if I go the non-Apple route,
right?
And being a bit of a
right.
fiscally sensitive person, from Ireland. I like to if I can buy the same spec product as an Apple for half or maybe even less than that price, I'm
true.
I'm a bit frugal in that aspect.
True. So you're all about the specs rather than the brand, or you're
I respect brands, and but I'm not. I understand them. And I understand the brands that have meaning to me, and at the moment I haven't gone down that Apple route. I don't think I ever will, but I do respect all of the things that they're doing. So what I'm saying is, when that's the differentiator, when the experience is a differentiator, when you call it user experience, call it customer experience, anything, that's somewhere where I felt I've always been anyway. So when I started out in digital services, providing digital services 20 years ago, I was always thinking, how is our customers going to perceive this, or how are the people who are going to interact with this system? And that goes for the internal stakeholders too, the senior management in companies, etc. How are we making them part of this experience? I mean, I went into one company in Belfast, and the managing director there had really no connection with his digital presence, didn't even know what it was.
Right.
And so for me, part of that project wasn't just delivering on what was written down on a piece of paper at the start. We want X, Y, and Z things online, which was a new web experience, a new email experience, etc. All of tying in all of the digital services you could get. But for me, the big part of that journey and part of what I was trying to do was to make him feel more connected,
right,
with the digital presence of the company. So I spent a lot of that engagement was around chatting to him, drawing out stories that had come out, helping to reflect that on the digital presence, and making him, going from at the very start where he was like, I don't really have any opinion, just do, you know what you're doing, and I've been told this is what we need, so let's provide that. To at the end, him saying, could we do this online? Could we do that? And I've had this idea. So for me, he definitely felt a lot more pride in the how we'd displayed that to him than could ever have been the case if I'd just gone off and delivered what he'd asked. The process and the time is exactly the same, but the investment in the building rapport with him and helping him to understand what would make him connected to that was for me as much part of that, and in essence providing him with an experience in delivering the product, which was internal experience for them. So I say I feel everything is relating to that, and I've always been interested in that area. I've always been interested in experimentation, and more so in the last few years been very, very interested in community and building community through these experiences, building community within teams, building communities within products, with internally, externally. So these are three of the key main sort of themes that I would say have always been there for me: the experience, the community, and the experimentation. Right. When it comes to experimentation, a lot of times in companies, now I've been in companies where they've given me a lot of free rein, and actually a lot of the experiments we did were successful. It was quite phenomenal at times, but it's not every company's willing to take those chances in doing a little bit more experimentation. Now what I mean by that is trying out different, particularly in communicating these ideas, because you can build 10 amazing features for a product, but I think sometimes if you're not communicating these features effectively, they just get lost, they become overwhelming. So for another example of that would be, Apple are very good at showing that they invented something. In their ads, they don't try to sell you 20 features, which sometimes their competitors were trying to, it does this and this and this and this and this. They were like, we do FaceTime. and it's on her phone. And if you like FaceTime, get the phone. And for a lot of people, that was enough. And making it possible to use that feature was enough for them. So then they found the other things.
So the practicality is most important, like something that's they use in their everyday life, something that
I think identifying that, no matter what it is key, and then not trying to overwhelm your users. But also, what I'm saying is the communication around that.
Right.
Apple reached out to people through their ads, which became almost synonymous, and people could relate to that, and they would be so. It really reflected the brand, and there's other ways to do that. Companies, depending on their size, what they're trying to do, it's not just about delivering the service; it's about delivering the communication around that service. Again, maybe building communities around getting that point out, and that's something that they were looking at. So with it, that's something I've worked on with a number of companies. Is thinking about how do you communicate this as well, because actually. Things like contextual help, which you don't see, which has started to come across, which is a term I started using, some 5-6 years ago, which I notice is now becoming industry standard. But before I started saying that, I didn't hear anyone talking about contextual help. In other words, instead of just sticking everything in the help file and FAQ, that you'd be looking at, well, how many times does this user come to this service, this digital service, and if it's their first time, what help would you give them, as opposed to if it's their 100th time. Or is this a feature that they need to use, or releasing that to a group of people who are active users and enabling them. And another thing that we're going to, I think, see more of is now contextual feedback. So contextual feedback being, if I'm on a particular part of the site again, we're releasing a new point, that we interact with them in a minimum friction way. So say we put a new feature out that just asks them then, did you like this feature? Give a score out of 5 out of 10, so you can then judge, has that been successful or has that not been successful. So these are, as I said, and just to go to the idea again of experimentation. So UX TV came around through a lot of different experiments I've been doing, particularly since I arrived in Scotland, but some of that predating that as well. But specifically around who's out there, what's happening in the professional space. What are people doing on social media? How are you getting your message out there? How can you use podcasts to explain things to people? How can you use Facebook Live and these different tools that are out there? And so I did a lot of experiments. People can find them. Maybe I'll talk about some of those at another time. But this led me to the groups that are in Edinburgh, and which one did I feel the most connected to. Right. And that was the UX community run by Mike Jefferson. And Mike Jefferson does absolutely sterling work in Edinburgh in creating this community of people that is so welcoming and empathetic to each other, which is what you'd expect from UXers, because ultimately UXers are design thinkers, and they're wanting to be empathetic to users, customers, stakeholders, understand their stories, why we've gotten to where we are, and help to evolve that product to make it easier to use, more efficient, more people want to use that. So with all of those things happening, I decided with being part of the UX community and wanting to do something in that space, I decided, I'd actually done an experiment around, doing more in the startup space, and I've done a bit of experiments around doing something in the agile space, because these are all things that I'm passionate about. I looked at doing things in the music space and things that I like in my spare time, and those things hopefully will evolve too. But I thought, well, I'm already passionate about, design thinking, UX, agile, entrepreneurship, etc. Actually, all of those things converge on UX. So there are a lot of, a lot of startups are very good at creating better user experiences because they have to be.
Right.
If they're going to disrupt the market, they're going to be completely different to what's been there before. And similarly, but there's a lot of UX professionals already coming in there, so there's a lot of interesting stories to tell. And what you're finding with the UX community is they're some of the most interesting stories because they're success stories.
Right.
In the lean agile space, it's a lot of doom and gloom a lot of the time. Projects they've thrown hundreds of people behind projects and they're not really working because for my money, they're spending too much time in. I mean, agile is essentially as is UX and design thinking. It's research, plan, do, learn. I was finding in the lean community, it was far too often they were spending way too much time in the plan, do, very little time in the learn space. And if the research space happened, it only happened at the start, and it wasn't done in an iterative way. But the learn and research should overlap each other at that point.
Yeah.
So they were good at doing, some of those activities. They certainly weren't doing any experimentation at all. And for me, it's way too transactional, way too focused on quantitative driven decisions and quantitative driven improvements, and not enough at all on the qualitative.
Right.
And them not even knowing how to quantify the qualitative. So what I would say, and I describe that as transactional. We've got a lot of companies out there that are doing things in a transactional form. Maybe that's the wrong word, but what I mean by that is very metrics driven, quantitative. Following the plan do part.
Yeah.
And there's not enough in the research and learn space, which I would call the human side or the user side. I don't know how to frame that. I would say the difference between but it's all a balancing act. I feel far too many projects, companies, individuals, teams are far too transactional and not human enough in the sense of what they're thinking, how they're delivering.
Do you ever think that the UX market might be oversaturated?
No, not even close. No. Not even close. Because you're talking about, again, projects, teams that have been built, and 9 times out of 10, the teams that I've seen built are, if they're having 9 people, 7 of them are developers, and 1 of them's a UXer, 1 of them's a tester. That's too imbalanced. Not even any thought of customer service, of other things there. So I don't think, I think UX is, and when I say UX, I'm including the touch points with customers in a big way there. Pre-sales, sales, post-sales, customer service, complaints, quality, and within quality testing, automated testing, BDD, all of these things. They're far too much skewed, and worse, a lot of the projects are being too influenced, and the decisions on sizing, the decisions on how much effort it's going to take has been too dominated by technical people.
Right.
And even when quality and that are trying to push back and say, no, we need to get this balance, their voice isn't either loud enough or considered enough or whatever. So I don't mean to sound negative. I think this is a great opportunity. The companies that are doing well because they've got that balance right.
Right. The
Facebooks, the Ubers, all of these companies, they've got that balance right. The companies that are struggling, and generally these are companies who are trying to do cost saving exercises. I always worry when a company's doing cost saving exercises.
Right.
Because that suggests that they're not making money at the minute. They're deep into the reserves, and they want to try and keep the reserves as much as possible.
That's right.
But if those companies don't disrupt themselves and get that balance right, they might not be around. I worked at Thomas Cook a few years ago and I thought the writing's on the wall there. I can talk about the environment now, I'm not going to, but I can talk offline to people, and I have done, about the environment, about the decision making process, about the lip service to all of these things, being truly agile, being there for the users. It was all lip service. There was no genuine attempt to really address that. So no, UX is only going to grow. UX and those services are only going to grow. The balance needs to be there. And by the way, some of these technical people can become, what we want is a multidisciplinary, cross-functional team. So what we want is for the front-end devs and these other technical people to become more aware of it. And also the pre-sales and that. Everyone's got a role to play in that. It's about taking, there's a training and relearning that needs to happen too, which I think people will want to go on, because ultimately people want to be doing the job that they need to do. They don't want to be filling out paperwork. They don't want to be, trying to just cost save all the time, because why? That's not very motivating. So they need to find, with individuals, I think, if they're enjoying what they're doing, they are more productive and they're better at their job.
Right.
But if they're feeling boxed in, if their lines of communication means that they don't feel that they're heard or they don't have a voice.
Yeah.
And again, you see this a lot of the time. Customer service and complaints should be able to influence what the changes in the systems that they are delivering, but they can't, because that's a sign that these companies aren't really agile at all in any sense of the word. They may say they are, but if they're not able to respond to the same complaint coming through time and time again, if even the customer service is saying, well, there's no point telling me about that because I have no effect on making a change there. Like,
Yeah.
well, clearly things are broken there in a massive way.
Right. So let's talk about the future of UX TV. What is your forecast for the next couple of years? Where do you think UX TV will be going in the next couple of years with the current evolving technologies, new innovations, new applications coming into
As I said, UX TV started out as some learnings from other experiments, and then it became an experiment itself. I find it, there was some technology out there to make it really easy to make a podcast and get it distributed. It's called Anchor. It was bought by Spotify. That meant that it's just ridiculously easy for free on your phone to create a podcast and put it out on all the platforms. So I mean, I had to experiment something in that space, and I had done a bit of experimentation before I created UX TV. But for me, I'd been looking for a professional podcast to put out. So I've already spoken to people like Professor Bill Buchanan, who is one of the leading lights in cryptography in the world, based in Napier College. And I thought, right, and there were some people that I just wanted to talk to because I thought their story's fascinating. They've really provided unique experiences in and off the work that they do. So people like Anna Christofferson, and who with her husband Mike have created the Swedish bar experience, which I don't think you see any other type of successful bar franchise, certainly of a country, other than Irish bars. So that's in and of itself interesting.
Okay.
And she provides great insight into how she does experimentation. So even whether she realizes it or not, she's a very lean. They do things in a very lean, agile way there. They experiment. They're very design thinking, even if they've never taken a design thinking class. And other people then that are more UX. So I thought, that's great. So I did a lot of podcasts, put them out, saw the response. There's a great response to it. But what you need to also do is you need to spend as much time promoting and distributing it. However, there's a good body of work there. There's enough podcasts out there, and there's 2 that I still have to put out. There's enough podcasts there to keep people semi-interested for at least a few to listen to keep them busy for at least 5, 6, 7 hours.
Right.
Then we experimented on Facebook, started doing Facebook Live, because that's, again, no editing, quick, cheap, dirty way to get yourself on Facebook. Essentially UX TV is the BBC for UX and anything that relates to that. So that was good. And then we started to edit, what I would say, curate that content and put it out on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn's a bit more professional. So I think we're very clear about the challenge that we've got right now. Now what we're going to be doing in the future is we're going to become a lot more professional. Katra has joined as the head of content, who is superbly successful, award-winning journalist from Estonia who lives here in Scotland. Very, very well connected and well informed about the startups both in Estonia and here, about financial services, about all kinds of technology. Loves being involved, writing about and understand these technologies. Also journalism, all of these things. Then she's done some market research. She's done a few different, I think she's got a couple of different degrees and qualifications around that space.
Right.
So really this is a good match for UX TV. We needed someone who's going to help me convert a lot of this, because actually it's really easy to create content. Okay, it's got to be a reasonable quality, but there's enough stuff going on out there to create content. I think we're going to be a lot pickier about where we go and what we do. But anyway, having Katra on board and then other people on the periphery, like yourself, hopefully in the future, but other people who we can say, well, if we need photography done, we can go and get help there from Wayne, or videography work from Wayne, who's another extremely talented individual. So right now what we want to do is, we've got these channels. We're going to stick to the podcast, across the podcast channels, the Facebook and the LinkedIn. We're going to be doing a lot more promotion. So I've been working with a lot of influencers in the UK, people like Mark Gaisford and Mike Winnett and Jack Bainbridge, because these for me they are creating a unique experience that that very few other businesses have even thought to do on LinkedIn. So these are people that I want to find ways to interact with, so that we get that undervalued attention in a sense, and we can get that message out there. The content's going to get a lot more professional, and going forward we're going to keep the old content up, because it's nice to look back on that and see how we've evolved. and I want people to see how it's evolved, how that has evolved. I encourage people to do stuff like this themselves. It's never been easier to create your own channel in whatever you're passionate about.
That's right. Yeah.
So we'll be growing that. We'll be looking at how that evolves over the next 3 months or so. I think that's a good goal in and of itself. I don't want to think too far ahead beyond that. I think we're still enjoying it a lot. There's a lot of interesting events and activities that we're going to be doing that we're really excited about. One of them, so I was on the phone to him today, Alan Lloyds, who is another one of the absolute gems in the Edinburgh community, let's say, but specifically in the Edinburgh tech and startup community. Alan, he is been, blazing a trail for years in live streaming, in creating events. So he's doing a hackathon at the end of this February, right? And when I was in Dubai, hackathons were like a weekly event.
Right.
I was part of Smart Cities hackathons, which we won. And I just think they're an amazing way to bring people together again, to build this community of people who are willing to take the time out of their busy schedules, but say, actually, no, you know what? It starts on a Thursday evening. I think it starts at like 5 or 6 o'clock. So you go there. It's not that expensive. So it's about being there, going on the Thursday. Maybe you bring an idea. Maybe you bring your skills and experience, your skills and your qualifications and your experience, and you connect with people, and it's all about the healthcare space. So what a very what's the word I'm looking for? Honourable or valuable place for people to go into some design thinking space on. There's a lot of big problems in healthcare. Right. There's a lot of people have a lot of issues in healthcare. mental health issues, Alzheimer's. These are the things that I personally I'm quite interested in. But one of the three things that may affect you in your life. The three most likely things that affect you are either heart disease, cancer, or some sort of cognitive disease or debilitating condition,
right? Or
mental health issue or things like that. So these are the three big areas. I think there's a lot we can do in that third area around that space of there's a lot in that cognitive area to help people or to identify it or to work with people. So that's what's happening. That's something that I'm really, really, really excited about. So for the next month, really, I'm going to be preparing UX TV to be part of that, because I see it as such a valuable opportunity. So I said we're going to be a lot more picky about what events we're doing and who we're working with.
Right.
But it's just a privilege to be. So Alan's part of this company, Product Forge. He also has an incubator sort of startup space, a hot desking facility down in Leith.
Yeah.
So Alan's involved in a lot of things. You should maybe think about having a chat with him at some point as well. But for me, let's see how that goes.
Yeah.
Let's make that a bit of a platform for UX TV to say we've evolved.
Yeah.
This is UX TV 2.0, if you like. We're going to be doing a lot of content around that. We're going to get that together. So that's really going to be the focus.
That's good stuff. Good stuff. Glad everything's working out, and you've got a lot of things on your plate at the moment.
Thank you.
And I think that's our time up.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
Well, Mike, thank you for your time, and it's been great talking to you. And I hope to see you next time. And that's it for us, folks.
I just want to say one last thing. FUXU. No, thank you. We'll talk about what I just FUX maybe some other time.
Absolutely.
But I think for now, the thing is UX TV.
All links to UX TV are listed below in the video description. Please share and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you later.